Do you like the north of England? Would you like to spend a couple of days doing nothing but playing board games, eating great food, in the presence of fantastic people, some well-known faces from board game media, and potentially Matthew Jude smelling great? Then come to AireCon between the 13th to 15th of March next year. Tickets and more information are available on their website. That's aircon.co.uk and also in the links in the show notes. And now, on with the show. We'll do a clap, so we'll count to 3 and then clap, and then we'll count to 3 and then we'll clap again. So we'll do a 1, 2, 3, then clap. So 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. Here we go. That should tie everything up lightly. And somebody told me tonight, you know that you go 1, 2, 3, clap, and then clap afterwards.
You do that. I didn't want to, I tried to delay my clap the second time.
So they just pointed me out, and I was like, fuck.
Well, I figure, if you're on episode 330, you know what you're doing with the claps by now, and it's your problem to cut them together.
It's not. I'm like the Rag and Bone Man. You know, Rob Newman used to talk about the Rag and Bone Man. He got to the point where he was not stopped asking, does anybody have any Rag and Bone, please? To just go, no. So I've got to... I've repeated that so many times that I actually believe that I'm no longer clapping after 3, I'm clapping after clap. Which is always good. You
don't even need to say clap, is the great thing.
I actually say clap as well.
It's implied. You don't need to say it out loud, you can clap.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for autumn. Because it's the seasons. And it's a little bit kind of, getting colder. It's kind of jumpers time. It's kind of getting dark at night. It's kind of, it's kind of looking forward to Christmas because potentially it's only a couple of months, 3 months to go. Joining me today is a gentleman who's decided to set me a challenge. And it's no normal challenge. Now, I'm not usually one that partakes in a ripiga. I'm with the cardboard and the board games. But this person said, I'll tell you what, if you can pronounce our company name, then I will come on your show and I will chat about our Ripiga Kickstarter that's going on at the moment. And I said, you should have a heart, man. And I said, wait, I do have a heart. In fact, our entire game is called Heart, the City Beneath. And I went, okay, well, give me this. So he hands me a piece of paper, and I say, well, welcome.
Yellow, curling at the edges.
Welcome. I've not introduced you yet, Grant. You're jumping into our...
Sorry.
That's fine.
I'm
Step
sorry,
back.
my apologies.
Okay.
Go on.
So joining me, I've got Grant Howitt. And Grant Howitt is from Rowan, Rook and Decard. See? Practiced. Professional. There you go.
Hello. Am I introduced now?
You are.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
It's nice to be here.
It's decidedly average here.
In my house, where I live. It's not like I'm anywhere different. We're recording this remotely.
I know. It's like one of these things. It's like, what happens if you said, oh, how are you? Well, I'm quite rubbish because, somebody's... I'm in somebody else's house and I'm wearing their shoes. I mean, it's pretty terrible.
Piles.
I know. It's not good. How are you? Anyway, you well?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. I am,
This is kind of like a movie thing, isn't it? Because we were talking about this before. Because we were saying, how many podcasts you've been doing. And you've been like, I've been doing loads of podcasts. It's just been...
I've done so many podcasts.
I'm just podcast. I don't even know where to start my story and stuff like that.
Wake up in the morning, 6 a.m. is podcast all the way to midnight.
Surrounded by podcasts.
Down podcast mines with a pickaxe holding them out. It's terrible.
I had a nice...
My back is sore. I've got podcast lung.
You've been down the podcast mine since you were 5, when you used to smoke your podcast pipe, but it was all fine because you had a lovely mic to smoke it in, which is always good. Heart, the city beneath Harrogate. We are gonna talk about it, but we're gonna talk about you for a bit because it's always nice to talk about you for a bit. It's currently almost sitting at £63,000 on a funding goal of 17,000. So, in terms of mood in camp, are you a happy chipper champer with that type of money that's coming in?
It's really weird. It's always really strange to do a Kickstarter because there's like the funding goal and there's your own secret personal goals. And then there's the other goals that all the other Kickstarters have set.
Yes.
That Root went live on the same day as us. We've had Root, we've had a new World of Darkness game. Under Hollow Hills is kickstarting as well. Slay Industry 2nd edition. But basically we picked the wrong week. John Harper just put out his new one tonight, at time of recording. So a lot of these are raking in cash, hand over fist. And so there's an element of like, but I want that money for me. And the other thing is, when you look at a Kickstarter number, like, I'm not just going to get to have a big sack of individual pound notes and get to walk around with it. That's going on books. That's going to pay. So me and Chris, the main employees of the business, the 2 employees of the business, that's our salaries. And the more money we get, the longer we can afford to have our salaries. But I still look at the Root Kickstarter and like, oh, you little bastards, swanning around with your silver trays and your absinthe, smoking opium from a sex worker's navel. I'm very jealous.
I can't actually see that kind of happening.
Not at Magpie Games. I
think you've kind of expanded that further than it actually maybe needs to be, because I've had Patrick later on from Leader Games, and he made the Root board game, and he's been fighting this opium addiction for some time. So for you to bring it up is probably going to trigger him back, and he's going to be straight down the street, speaking to Squidgy John and saying, "Can you sort us out, son? And I shall fill you up with Root RPG books for the rest of your life." But anyway,
finding the nearest velvet-lined cushion, throwing himself upon it, and waiting until the man from China brings him some.
Exactly, with his lovely hat.
The little brown opium hat. Hello.
Were you, when you were growing up, because let's take this away from this. People go and look at the Kickstarter, it's fantastic, but Grant, as I know, is a creationary type person. So when you were growing up, were you always the creationary type person? Were you, was the teacher always, now Grant, if you do another one of those silly voices, headmaster's office, or was it something that you kind of grew into as you kind of got older, being kind of creative and kind of using your imagination, making kind of stuff up as you?
I was 100% that kid.
Yeah?
However, also, I was smart and I could talk to adults,
right.
So I didn't get in trouble. I was fucking insufferable, I should imagine, as a child. I was like for a while, I was your sort of top of the class, bright lad, and then I realised that having friends was more interesting, and there was a marked drop in my grades the year I decided to stop trying.
Was it kind of like a popularity type of thing? Did people discover that you were funny and interesting and fantastic, but in order to maintain that funny, interesting and fantastic it means you needed to kind of steer off the kind of the golden path of lovely grades and, attentive listening and stuff like that?
I think so as well. I think that there's an element of like I wasn't lying about who I was, but there was definitely an element of no. I think I want to have friends now. I'm going to stop studying quite so hard, and I'm going to try and focus more socially. A bit like not focusing so hard at work to try and up your social life or what have you. But I was always very imaginative. Mum and Dad read to me a lot from a young age, which was very good of them. And I've carried on doing it. I did a degree in creative writing.
Oh, right, okay.
A university down at the old UE. I did American literature and creative writing, so it wouldn't let me do creative writing on its own.
Yeah.
And the great thing about American literature is it is maximum 200 years old.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, well, because I wasn't really in America
I suppose,
before
yeah,
that.
exactly. So you kind of like everything that you knew, you probably knew everything. Unlike this, if you go back into like English literature, you're like going, I don't even know what this is, and it's Shakespeare, and I hate it, kind of thing, because they keep.
They've got weird language. And like Chaucer, I had to go on that recently, funnily enough, for Heart. I thought I'll have a bash on Chaucer because I missed it the first time around, and it's all right. But I'm glad I don't have to like do a quiz on it, like do an exam or write an essay on it.
I can imagine that there's kind of like there's youth detention centres out there, and they're saying, right, you're either going to go back to your room or you're going to spend the afternoon reading Chaucer, and you'll just see them dash in. Do you know what I mean? Do you want some Byron, Keats, and Shelley again? Do you? Is that what you want? Is that what you want? Do you want to come back in 3 months? You'll behave yourself, son. That's what you'll be doing, kind of thing. The thing about creative people is that the value of your work, unless you hit the big time, can unfortunately be kind of like diminished. Because I know a lot of people who are very, very creative who are basically, you know, if they actually try to live off the money that they make from their creative stuff, they would really, really find it kind of difficult to do. Did you go straight from the path from your degree? Did you go straight into kind of like a creative writing kind of position, or were you kind of...
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, I went to UEA. Sorry, there's a giant fucking insect in here. I think it owns the house now. Jesus, fuck my eye cries. Where is it? Oh god, it's hidden. Okay, I can't see it, which is both good and bad.
I'm gonna have to ask you to roll for initiative here in the background.
No, I don't want to make any loud noises that might attract it. If you hear a noise like a fucking daddy long legs with a beard, then it's taking over my business now.
No, that's fantastic.
So because I went to the University of East Anglia, I, like everyone else who lived in Norwich, worked for Aviva for a while, or Norwich Union as it used to be called.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a penance that everyone does. And I ended up there for 2.5 years. Doing pensions administration with no training, very little training, and I would explain to confused 65-year-olds why they didn't have any money in their pensions, just that they didn't have any money in their pensions, and I didn't understand why. So that was fun. And I ricocheted around between temp jobs for a while coming out of that. I was a chef for 3 months, and I never shut up about it. And eventually, what got me into writing full time as a career, I applied for an internship at FHM for Him magazine. Yeah, back in the day. This was back in 2011, I think I applied.
Was that the kind of the Glory Days type thing then, or was that after? Were they still contracting?
No, that was after the Glory Days. I think the Glory Days were like mid to late 90s, when they were like vaguely relevant, but the internet had really ruined FHM's business model because it was funny articles and pictures of tits, and that's what the internet is. Yeah, and
pretty much. And they were just like that. Well, might as well go home now.
They hired me to write funny articles about tits. I had to write, so I was on retainer. I was getting paid, honestly, not enough money to do it, but I had to write 4 articles a day about something a woman had done.
No way.
So you had to be an attractive woman and had to have had their picture taken, and then I had to come up with 250 words minimum about what was happening in the picture for SEO purposes.
You're really?
That was it. Yeah, I got pretty. I had zero editorial oversight for a lot of it as well, so I got to write what I wanted. And
what an example? Give me an example of this kind of you not obviously have to be kind of obviously go down the crude and dirty line, but was it just a case of, and they're just wearing this and they're just looking like this and they're going to have a fantastic day at the beach kind of thing, or was it just like...
Absolutely not. It was my favourite one. So Olivia Wilde, who's an actress.
Yes.
She was doing the Christmas lights somewhere, and there was a picture of her holding this big star off the top of the tree. It'd be about as big as her torso was. Yeah. And the headline was Olivia Wilde unearths mysterious obsidian star. I wrote. I think 400 words about how she'd been on an expedition. Sorry, it allegedly she'd been on an expedition to the Arctic, and dug it up from beneath the ice, and had to shoot a couple of her guides on the way. And no one cared. And I said alleged. I didn't bother using that sort of terminology.
Yeah.
The one time that they stepped in, I was broadly anti-military in one of my stances.
Really?
And they were like, actually, Grant, a lot of squaddies read the website. Can we not, please? But aside from that, I got to basically write what I want. So I did that, and I wrote about video games as well for them, because that was what I was really passionate about.
Yeah.
And I was a freelance games journalist for a while. I got a cover feature, which I was very proud of.
Who did you work for? Was it like your Edge magazines and places like that? Or did you manage them?
Edge wouldn't have me. No,
really?
It was God, no. I'm not. I wasn't well established enough for Edge. You got to be a Simon Parkins for that.
Oh yeah.
No, I did. I did some stuff for The Guardian.
Oh yeah.
I did some stuff for PSM3, Games Master. I managed to write one article for PC Gamer, which I was so proud of, because I used to love reading PC Gamer growing up, and that was really formative for me. I did some work doing that, and then I happened to ricochet around the country, around the globe. I lived in Australia and New York for a while, following my partner's job around.
Yeah.
So I lost all my contacts, and unable to be a freelance games journalist anymore, I started writing role-playing games, because thankfully we were getting enough money coming into the household. I didn't have to work, and in America it was illegal for me to work.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. So we managed, like we made it work, and I got to do my dream job for a while, and it's profitable now. Just nuts. But no, it was definitely not a smooth trajectory.
I don't know if anybody is. I think people find you manage to get into something that you would like to do, and it ends up usually being in a hobby, and then you struggle with it to try and kind of make some money from it, and then people like yourself manage to make a little bit of money about it. But I've never seen somebody going, look, I'm doing board game media, and I'm just about to buy a new car off the cash that I've got. There's nobody that's doing that. You maybe buy a toy car, or you maybe maybe get sent a car, but you've got to review the car, and it's a toy car, and it's part of like Pitch Car or something, so it's actually just a wooden disc, so it's crap. Kind of thing.
I did not get into this job for the money, no.
But, I mean, the role-playing stuff, did it just come about, or was it something that you were just like, I'm just going to sit here with a pad and just start writing stuff and see where it goes?
So I wrote like the first foray into game design after some brief fuckabouts I did at secondary school, which I'm glad had been lost to the ages. Me and the chap who was supposed to be in the show tonight but is too ill, Christopher Taylor, we wrote a live role playing game, because he got some Nerf guns, and we thought, it'd be fun if we could have a zombie game with these. And we decided to go and try LARP to see what that was like. And I think he got through half a morning Buffer LARP. I got through one evening of World of Darkness. Oh, hello, I'm a vampire. Do you want to be friends? Oh, not really. Sort of LARP. And we both decided that we could do it better. So we wrote a LARP with no real understanding of the rules of LARP. We just sort of went at it. Like I've always been a fan of role-playing games. They've always really excited me. And Chris and I worked really well together. And so that was kind of our first foray. We ended up writing, honestly, a pretty serviceable system, as long as you don't mind character. Lifespan of about 7 minutes. And that went really well. We ended up running it at an abandoned shopping mall in Reading.
Oh right.
It was it was really exciting. It was really cool. But we very quickly realised there was no way to make money out of it. Well, I say very quickly. We realised there was no way to make money out of it. We couldn't have it as a business whilst keeping it what it was. Yeah. Like the same thing with the industry that we're in now. Like, there are much more efficient things that we could be doing within the industry to make money. But the purpose of this business is so that we can make cool games we like, rather than publishing other people's stuff or doing layout or, middlemaning, that sort of thing. Yeah.
You regularly write. I mean, for Patreon, you regularly are writing kind of little role playing kind of games. Isn't that like a huge commitment? I mean, does that not require you to be just Or are you just one of these folk that's like, no, it's easy? Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I just wake up and I've got 15 ideas. You know what I mean? Do you want an idea just now? Look, you're a duck, try to get back. You try to fight the bread monster's coming after you. And if the bread monster gets you, you get a really sore stomach, and that's what you do. You roll 3d10, there you go. Flappability. Yeah. And that's it, there you go. It.
I mean, that's not too dissimilar from my design process. I used to have a lot too many ideas.
Yeah.
I used to be very mentally unwell and unmedicated, and I used to get crazy amounts of ideas. Oh, so many ideas I never did anything with because I was too mad.
Yeah.
And now I'm much calmer and have about 2 ideas a week, thanks to my old friend venlafaxine, which stops me from going too mad. But it's calmed me down. It's taken all the edges off. But no, I think like the reason why I can do it is because I've been doing it for 10 years. Like I'm practiced in it now, and I know how to make the pieces go together. Mm-hmm. And if I was trying to write my first RPG every month, then it would take ages, and I would not be sure enough to do it, and it would be this tremendous outpouring of effort. But it's something there's a rhythm to it which I've gotten into now, and there's a format which I can flow into, and also I have a button on my computer. When I push it, I get $2,000, and every time I push it, I have to release a role playing game.
Yeah.
So that's quite a nice incentive,
I suppose, because that's is that how it works on Patreon, that you're getting paid every time you release.
I get paid every time I push the button.
Wow.
No, it's for every release, and most people say, "Oh, well, I'll pay you once per month for this thing." Uh-huh. But the deal with Patreon, it's not like Kickstarter, because people pay up front for it, without seeing what it is. And like a lot of people will, like patrons have different models, and like some people will be like, oh, I want this thing to exist, so I'm going to write this big long book, and you can pay to support me, and you can read the book as I go. But with me, it's much more of it's a transactional thing. You get one game a month. Thank you very much. I mean, I send physical copies out to some people as well.
Is it like a 1-pager? Is it like a 2-pager? I mean, are they getting a pamphlet?
It's
getting like a book?
It's 1 page. It's 1 page.
Wow.
The shortest legal length of RPG. And if I send you a physical one, there's a back page on it, which is only ever done in physical. Mm-hmm. So we don't release this online. And one of the things which I really liked about RPGs growing up, and this is just useless nostalgia, but you know how people are like, oh, I remember watching films on VHS. You had to hunt down all the things you want. Oh, you appreciated it though. And like, I'm sure you did, but it's much better now. Mm-hmm. It's much better just being able to download what you want. But when I was younger, cause I grew up, I spent my secondary school years in Portugal. I went to an international school, and there weren't any English bookshops, let alone any English role-playing bookshops. And so I didn't have the opportunity to really get role-playing games. And so whenever I found one, it was this sort of this sacred, exciting item where we'd pass it around between each other to read. Yeah. And I wanted to sort of channel some of that into the games. It's like, well, okay, these aren't like the back pages. It's never going to be anything vital to play in the game. They're B-sides, a lot of them, but it's something unique, which like a very limited number of people have. And I think there's something kind of exciting about that.
Do you miss the creativity from being the non-medication side of things, or was it a horrific struggle, or was it a case that you didn't realise at the time until somebody kind of took you aside?
I don't think I realised at the time. I can't throw myself into anything as melodramatically as I used to.
Yeah.
And that goes for both high and low emotions. I think that the capacity to be obsessed with something.
Yes.
Has gone. But I think that we have this myth of the tortured artist, the mentally ill artist, and his insanity gave him insight. And the thing about pretty much every mentally ill artist who did very well is they were also independently wealthy. And you look at, or like they were funded from outside sources, and you look at like the people who were not independently wealthy and were mentally deranged because they didn't have the opportunity to just focus on the work. They had to have a job. They had to have kids. They had to pay the rent. being mentally unwell takes so much out of you, takes so much out of your day. And sure, I mean, I used to have more ideas, and I used to, like, my brain used to feel like Pop Rocks in Coke. But also, I'd spend 6 out of every 12 hours wanting to die. Yeah. So it was like, I think it's just a more mature way of looking at it as well, and being like, actually, this is. On the whole, sure, I don't get those random flashes of inspiration, but I can sit down at my desk at 9 a.m. and work through till lunch without going mad because I looked out the window.
Yeah. And it's this romantic view, as you say, about them saying, well, you know, these wonderful people that they get stifle their creativity if they actually go and try and help themselves kind of reach some kind of stability. Yeah. And I think it's a case of, okay then, but you can get help for yourself, and you're ultimately you will probably end up in a much more happier place kind of going down the line. And it's I see it all the time I've got friends that, you know, just hate that because they're like going, well, why do I have to be like that? You know, it's like, why do I have to suffer every single point in order to kind of release something creative? Which I was just wondering kind of where you kind of were with that kind of thing.
I think that I struggle to think of a work of art that exists which is worth the madness of the person who made it. I think that's where I stand on it. You've got to be pretty up your own arse to think that your own sanity is less important than the brilliance of your work. Mm-hmm. 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 Or 21. That's just the other thing.
Because at that point, you're just invisible and you can do absolutely anything at all. About 5 years ago, you took the road to Kickstarter for the first time with Goblin Quest, and I remember, I think I remember Goblin Quest at the time, and I think that was because I was aware of your existence through, I think, the video game kind of people, because I used to do some video game writing, so I was aware of I was aware of the kind of the journalistic monsters that were going about at the time anyway, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, No,
we were on each other's periphery, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the case. I think that was the kind of the case at the time. So it was because Goblin Quest came out, and what was your reason? Because Kickstarter at that time, 5 years ago, was a completely different beast from what it was now. It was all ideas. You could rock up with a piece of A4 and 15 crayons and go, look, I'm calling it Gloomhaven. I've not got any art. There's no counters. That's a bit of snot.
I get the impression it's going to use a lot of cards.
Yeah, there's a bit of snot on it where I wipe my nose. Don't worry about that. But it looks good, eh? Do you want to give me $50 And what would happen is people would go, look at that idea. That's an amazing idea. I know he needs the art. I know he needs a counter. He looks like he needs potentially a fresh pair of trousers, but let's give him his money, and that would happen. With Goblin Quest, was that what you decided? Obviously, you'd have had clean trousers at the time.
Wow.
But
okay.
I'm not going there, but what I'm saying is...
It's a very professional...
At that point... At that point in the... Don't lie. At that point in the time, did you were like saying, well, let's try this out and see how it goes? Was that kind of like you sticking your toes in the water to see, well, Kickstarter's there. Yeah. Is it likely to support something like what I'm doing, kind of thing?
Very much so. So I should mention. So I mentioned Chris as one part of our business, but the other third of our business is Mary, Mary Hamilton, who is my spouse and also our business manager.
Yes.
They've got a brain the size of a planet, and they're not afraid to use it. And Mary has always been really supportive of my work as my partner, and like it was Mary who said, "Oh, why don't you try putting out 1-page role-playing games?" Because that way you don't get caught up in like a 35-page book that you have to send out. It's just 1 page and you can do one a month. And it was Mary who said, well, you've written Goblin Quest. There's enough here to publish it. And they costed it out and it was $2,000. And that's like nothing, in real terms to try and make a book come out. And I think like my payment for the first Goblin Quest was, I think, £200, which was not a lot for writing a book. Got to be honest with you, but it was it's Mary's idea, and they helped me set it up. They helped me sort it out, and from that first, like, because we set our funding goal so low, and it was like, right, we just need to get some art done, and we've got costs for a per unit printer for a print on demand thing. Yeah. It was all very cheap and cheerful, but it was like, well, what if we want to self publish a book? How much do we need? We cost it out and did it, and it went really well considering it was our first thing, and I was an unknown at that point, and I had like, we didn't have an IP, we didn't have any of the normal things you need to make a Kickstarter succeed. I did put Cthulhu in it, because you have to.
Because it's the law.
It's the law, otherwise you won't make any money on Kickstarter.
Yeah, otherwise Cthulhu comes and gets you, taps you on the shoulder. Yeah. It goes, Elder God here, you're doing an RPG, what's going on? Why am I not in your game? Come on. Just a tentacle. That's all I'm asking.
Can we just have some rules for someone running me over with a boat, please?
But you went on to do like 20 grand on that kind of campaign. So was that a kind of a confidence boost to the time to say, actually, people are wanting this?
Hell yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And like, by that point, I'd written enough games with that, so I built some steam through our Patreon. I'd done One Last Job, which is still kind of popular. It's in German. The only physical edition of One Last Job is in German, which is nuts. I did Warrior Poet, which I believe some people are playing. Oh no, it's 11:30. So people were playing it earlier tonight online. They were streaming it, and Havoc Brigade, which is a very silly orc invasion game.
Yeah.
And so I'd done those, and they'd got me a bit of traction in that I could say, hey, I wrote these games. And so people could look at something I'd written and then say, oh, okay, I quite like that. I was giving them away for free at the time. And it was, oh, okay, I quite like that. Yeah, I'll give them some money for this. And I think we were charging £12 a book, which is nothing.
Yeah.
And like it's like it was a softback A5 book, but like just by the level of work put into it, I shouldn't have charged £12 for it. But it was a look. In retrospect, I'm saying it's a bad idea. I don't think it was. I think that it was a very low price thing, which got a lot of people in there.
Yeah. And
then they have this thing from me in their homes. And then when my next Kickstarter comes out, then they can be, or when my Patreon goes up, or what have you, or when I just release a game. So that was a huge confidence boost, and that was at the same time I was rewriting Paranoia. So I did Paranoia with James Wallace and Paul Dean.
Yes.
I did the new, we did not change the name, it's just called Paranoia. I think it needs an edition name, because it's not new anymore. It came out about 5 years ago.
Wow.
But 4 years? I don't know. But we were working on that at the time, and that was interesting, because I'd never worked with a publisher before. I'd never really worked as part of a team before, aside from with Chris. And so it was very difficult to sort of get my normal, I don't like the word auteur, but I fucking am one. And my normal sort of, I think I shall tweak this precise rule, and then take some tea in the garden and take that and have two other people who had different philosophies trying to jam this together, and then getting that through the publishers, and then getting that through the Tone Czar, and then getting that through the original owners of the IP, and just like not really caring by the end of it. I submitted my work to the Paranoia. I submitted my work to Mongoose, everything I was signed up for, and a year later they received the rest of the book.
Wow!
Which is why it was late.
Wow!
But that was kind of a downer for me, because the project was mismanaged in a lot of ways. I think that. Like we didn't have a project manager on it, but I'm really proud of what we made. I think the Paranoia game is great. I think it's fun, and I think it does things. It takes the sensation of playing Paranoia, but takes out the whole bit where you have to be an arsehole.
Yeah,
and that was the bit I never liked about Paranoia. But because it was mismanaged, because like there was a lot of bad blood about it coming out a year and a half later, what have you, I didn't feel confident saying, "Oh, and I wrote the latest edition of Paranoia." And I think there was an understanding at that point. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to actually make my own hustle on this. I'm gonna have to be recognised for my own merits, because I can't rely on people.
I can't
rely on publishers in that way.
Yeah. So it's more a case of as this kind of thing. You would have been, if everything had gone well, you would have been, yep, paranoia, that's me. And then you would have went,
I'm the paranoia guy.
I'm a bit paranoid about people mentioning paranoia, because I know I did my bit well, but there was other factors that came in that makes me guilty by association. So in other words, I need to go and do something else. You went on and you did Spire and you did Strata as well, and you're starting to get into the kind of the 50,000s and the 60,000s and the 70,000s and things like that. And now, obviously, you're going into Heart. How long has that been in the making? I mean, has that been something... I mean... Are you the type of person that has, because of what you do in terms of Patreon and producing stuff, are you the type of boy that has a type of boy? Oh my word.
Type of boy.
Are you the type of...
Oh, hello, it's me.
Are you the type of boy that likes to run around the playground with your top button on your jacket up at the top, screaming that you're Batman and looking to fight the bad guys? Or, no, are you the type of person that has a ring binder?
You ever been in the cockpit of a plane before, Jimmy?
Exactly. You ever been in a Turkish prison?
You ever seen a grown man naked?
Let's not do that.
I would, you know what, I would love to say that I am that sort of boy. Just because I love the idea of running around with my tie slightly undone and there's still bun grease on my lips. But no, I generally have about one or two ideas bubbling away for one-page games, and it's often like I'll sit down with my mates and we'll start chatting, and they'll be like, "Oh, this would be a fun idea for a game," and it's kind of like they're daring me to do it at this point. So like, what's the one? There's one that I got basically feature complete, and then we released something else this month. Yeah. But it was called The Right to Bear Arms, and you have your arms replaced with bears, or swans. Or you are a giraffe centaur, which is you just replace the head of a giraffe with the full torso and arms of a human, so they're sort of flopping around up there. And the gag is you have to one, fight crime, and two, do the administration processes around your crime fighting business. So you have to like use your swans to do photocopies. And that came out of my mates. Like we were settling down to play the Heart playtest, and they started joking about doing like bear arms and swan arms. And I'm like, oh, should we do this? Should we just write it now? And we spent like 3 hours coming up with animal jokes, and it was lovely.
Do you design on a particular system then? I mean, do you have like a D12, D20 type system type thing, or are you just kind of creating the system at the same time?
It depends. There's one I wrote for The Witch is Dead, which is the first game I put out, and I've gone back to that for two other pieces of my work with various tweaks. So the games are The Streets of Karazhan and Beautiful Space Pirates, and and also the Skyfarer RPG, which I wrote for Sunless Skies. Which me and Chris wrote. We had this diceless system in place, and they were like, we don't really want diceless, so we just sort of like crowbarred out a system from one of our old things and smushed it in, and it works really well. Like it's a dramatic system, and it's about action and risk and fun, and I'm not ashamed of doing it. So I've got that, and that's kind of something I play with. But generally, I like a D6 pool. I like rolling more than one dice. I don't like adding numbers together. That bores me. But it's like, because it's one page, you've only got so much room to actually, you've only got so many moving parts, and people aren't going to play them for years at a time. You're going to play it once, have a great time, and then probably not play it again, or play it with a different group or what have you. And so I can afford to be very basic and simple with the dice mechanics and let the GM fill in the rest. But yeah, there's no default system.
And are you aiming for like a time and how quickly somebody can get a game done, or is that particularly like, well, here's the rules, you do with what you want? If you decide that the giraffe's going to be going out and they're going to be, going to a movie theatre, and there's a scene where the guy tries to eat popcorn with his swan arms, and it just goes everywhere against a big girly guy who's got like a rhino horn for a nose type of thing, and it all goes everywhere, and that's going to take 8 hours to do, and you've got to decide actually what film you're watching as well at the same time. And the music that's playing in the background is obviously When Doves Cry by Prince. because that's just how these things have to be. But,
Yeah.
I mean, is it a case that somebody that's picking up a Grant Howitt...
Howitzer, please.
Sorry. If someone is picking up a howitzer, are they expecting to get? This is just going all types of wrong. Are they going to get like a two? Is it going to be a 2 hour fun time, or are they looking like an 8
long-term fun time,
an 8 hour long session?
They're going to get the full service. I think that my games have developed a reputation for being about 2 hours long. Mm-hmm. And I think that the reason I write them that long is that I'm 32 now, and that's about how long I want to do anything for. I'm not hugely excited to do anything for more than 2 hours, and also like I've been working all day, and all my friends have been working all day, and even though my job is writing books about elves, it can be quite mentally tiring.
Yeah.
And so like we just want to sit down and do something silly and off the wall and unrestrained and improv led with very little prep or no prep, like prep which is rolled at the table where people make characters. I think that's one of my trademarks, one of my signatures, is that I really rail against the idea that the GM should have to do more work than the players. I think that we're all turning up to do something exciting together, and the idea of the players arriving to be entertained puts you in this really weird position. This really an unpleasant power dynamic in that they are your master, but also your entertainer. Just looking at the games which Chris and I have written together, and the one pages too, so many of them are, okay, sit down while the player's making the characters. You're going to do this bit here. Also, the characters, the players are going to tell you the plot, but they don't know they're going to tell you the plot.
Yeah.
Then you got to piece it together. And like, that's how me and Chris GM. And that's what I think good GMing is. I think that, you can do all the prep in the world, but you can't, at that point, you should write a book or something along those lines, or write adventures or what have you, but having to do, like, all of my improv training tells me not to prepare. And the more you prepare, the more you have to forget and give up. And that's the more you're carrying with you into that scene. And you're not thinking about reacting. You're not trying to be genuine. You're not trying to be entertaining or exciting. You're trying to remember the thing you wrote 3 hours ago because you reckon it's better than what this other person's saying. It doesn't create very good energy.
Yeah, yeah. Would you prefer to do something that's kind of like, are you always going for like a comedy, light-hearted value? I mean, when you're writing the serious stuff, or does it depend on kind of the mood that you're in at the time?
I try and alternate.
Yeah.
So I try and do one serious, one comedy, because comedy ones, they do well. People like being able to say, oh, this is funny, I'd like to play this. And honestly, I prefer playing them myself because it's rare I sit down and I want to get really disturbed. I fancy a good harrowing, please. Exactly. I want to sit down and have a nice time with my friends. The reason I watch comedies, the reason I play like lighthearted computer games, and I don't play computer games competitively. I don't I don't go on and do versus stuff online. I want to have a quite a soft experience, I think. But that said, I love horror. I love creepy role playing games. I love I love the the violence and excitement of fights. And so I mean, the last game that we put out was it's called The Witch House, and you have to play witches' familiars, which are people who've been magicked into animal shapes, and it's kind of the last day you have of your the last vestiges of your human soul within you, and you have to try and kill the witch to get out with your soul intact. And that's not nice at all, and it's actually written to make it very hard to do, and you'll probably just defect to the witch. But
do you push yourself then to write stuff that you prefer not to be writing? I don't necessarily mean by making you feel uncomfortable, but in terms of challenging yourself, do you sit down and say, well, I know how to write comedy, do you know what I mean? Let's write about, jellies fighting for kind of domination in the fridge while they're setting, kind of thing, and throwing stuff into each other's jelly to kind of make sure it doesn't set as well, kind of thing. Roll 3 6s and let's see how it goes. Or would you prefer, or would you prefer to kind of go, well, the fridge is about to get opened, but a little finger's just dropped out on the floor when you've opened the fridge, kind of thing, and you're saying, well, I'm not sure about writing that kind of thing.
My packet of fingers has come open and they've spilled everywhere.
Chocolate fingers, they're kind of covered in chocolate. When it looks like chocolate, it could be something else. It's Marmite.
It could be. It's gravy.
I put Marmite on it so my mum doesn't eat my fingers. She doesn't like Marmite.
My cheeky cow. She's always eating my fingers.
Exactly. Crunching away in the corner.
Can hear you, Mum.
Watch it, Mum. That one's got a ring in it. I was keeping it.
Sitting there watching Corey chewing away on an index finger that I stole off a man. No. Okay, so I really like, as I said a couple of minutes ago, I really like horror, and like my games that I run tend toward either comedy or horror. I think that comedy is the natural state of role-playing games, because no matter how serious a game you're in, there's always been a bit where we've had a laugh. There's always been a bit where, even if it's not in character or what have you, or if it's like a little joke someone makes, that sort of weird semi in and out of character state that you get into sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think everyone's going to make jokes because we're all hanging out and generally we're all friends. And if we're not friends, we're trying to impress each other. So we'll tell jokes and we'll try and have comic timing and things. And I think that doing a game not writing a comedy game per se, but writing a game which lets people be funny, and writing a game which sets up these, which you plug the players into, and then funny things happen, rather than, here's a funny table to roll on, because you can only look at a funny table once before it stops being funny. But if you use these machines, then people can make their own gags, and they feel very clever. Yeah, and it's really wonderful to see. I love doing it. But I love squicking players out. I love getting really visceral with descriptions of horror. I love there's a really fun power dynamic to play with there as well. And I think that I mean, the Spire is a horror game in a lot of ways. It's about the injustices, and about the fact that it's about social inequality. It's about this massive inequality and these sort of alien creatures who are in charge of the place, who don't really understand you but still hate you. And so there's some horror there, and Heart is expressly horrific. It's in the next thing. I think it's in the subtitle of the Kickstarter, and that lets me play with the weird and the grotesque, and being able to talk about, we've had this idea, and like, what if magic was gross, and then playing with it in that way, and being able to, and Chris and I will bounce off each other and come up with these really sick ideas, and then sort of file those down a bit because we don't want to come across as edgy. And you have to sort of, in fact, there's a discussion going on the Discord today. So we have a class in Heart called the Deep Apiarist, and the Deep Apiarist, they're wizards. Who accept this thing called the Hive. Oh yes, I got it. Yeah, they accept this thing called the Hive, which is an extra-dimensional shit ton of bees into their body, and it replaces their organs with wax copies, and they can cast weird magic because of it. Yeah. And we're sketching out the class, and I was like, I had this idea that you make honey like in your chest cavity, and then feed it and you can give it to the other player. It's like a healing potion. I wrote that down, and immediately I was like, no, that's disgusting. And it's not the fact that you have honey in you; it's the fact that you're feeding it to another player for a game benefit. And like, it would be perfectly fine in the novel. It's perfectly fine if an NPC does that. But if you got your players together and you got one guy being like, come over and lap the honey out of my chest so you don't die. And it's just giving you too many opportunities to be really disgusting.
Imagine him kicking away and going, so what's for dinner then, Martin? It's honey chili chicken. Again. I checked the cupboard and we're out of honey. Got it covered, mate. Got it covered. You just go sit down, watch Corey. Right, yeah. I've got loads. I need you to not look at me for a while. Is it kind of? That's just an aura. That's just. Anyway, let's. It's.
Yeah. Well, I guess the thing which I was getting to about the discussion on the Deep Apiarist stuff. So I wrote in the preview for the class, we were going to put this in, thought it was gross. Yeah. Instead, you get cool hypodermic bees which sting you with opium, basically.
Oh, okay, well that's fair.
And yeah, because it's much less squicky somehow. It's medical, and a load of people were like, no, I want to lick honey out of someone's chest. And I'm kind of glad you do. And I'm definitely putting it in my games, but I don't want that to be a default thing for the player. I think there's like one of the things we try and do is like with our horror games is strike a balance between that edginess, between that deliberately trying to be the grossest, sickest, and you can always say it a mile off and it doesn't work, and sort of like trying to sit in that comfortable level of human scale of horror.
Yeah, I think once you get into the kind of the body horror stuff, there's some people that are automatically going to go, listen, I can't. I got to tap out on this. I got to kind of tap out on this thing. Have you have you got to be more aware of kind of topics and things like that people are talking about in relation to equality and sexism, misogyny and stuff like that? Do you think about that at all? Are you just like, look, I've got the rule set here. Ultimately, I can never ever control what somebody is going to be doing. You know, for instance, if somebody decided that the honey making thing had to be a woman, you know, kind of thing, then there's nothing I can do about that. That is just a kind of like a character trait. Or is it something you have to be kind of careful of or conscious of when you're putting together characters and stuff like that?
Definitely conscious. It's something which we think about, and something which like having Chris and I write everything. This is kind of like having a hindbrain for each other. So we'll write something and go, oh, hang on a sec. Mm-hmm. That's implying some weird things. Yeah. And like we were trying to write up. So one of my classes is the witch, and the witch is the gag is that it's the monstrous feminine, because when a witch takes basically major fallout, when a witch has a big problem happen, they mutate into a big horrible monster and stomp about and kill things. And this like, oh, okay, so that's what you think of women, Grant. And so we were writing that down, and we were like, okay, so what if they had like a cool lair? Okay, so so they summon like a hole in the wall, and they can go through this sort of meaty slit in the wall. Maybe monsters come out of it, and we just sort of like, we were both sort of pulling each other back from the precipice. It's like, no, actually, that's really weird. That says some really weird things. And so like, I'm not going to pretend that we get it right first time, or even the last time we do it. But I think like, I've been conditioned in a certain way, and part of being a game designer of any sort of merit is realizing that your work is political, that any art is political, any act is political, being apolitical is political. Yeah. And so we have a responsibility to write the sort of things we want to see, to not punch down, to include, to make as inclusive a game as possible. And quite aside from the fact that I want that in the world, it's sound business sense. I want to write games where as many people as possible can pick it up and say, oh, I can see myself in this book. I don't feel excluded from this narrative. Yeah. Because then they can give me money. But like, I mean, that's semi-lighthearted, you know. I mean, I cringe now when I look back at books that I was reading when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, God, that's rubbish. Oh, the treatment of women in here is shit. I was watching fucking Blade Runner 2049 last night.
Oh, my word, yes.
It's just whores all day long. I just couldn't. It just got to me, and I think that like there's an element of sort of growing up and saying, oh, actually, this is really skeezy and not cool, and being able to, you know, look at the world through someone else's eyes for a snap second, which is something that role playing games let us do. And I think that as long as you can skirt around the poverty tourism. Yeah, you can probably be quite cathartic about. There's something quite cathartic about holding a revolution, or getting to. I mean, heart is about getting to die on your own terms rather than someone else's terms.
So, I mean, coming into obviously bringing the reason that you were going to be coming on the show in the first place at the very, very last kind of like 4 or 5 minutes of the show. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about Heart, the City Beneath.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
You know, what are they expecting? What should they look for? What are you going to deliver on the table? What kind of experience?
Oh yeah, what sort of thing am I bringing to the plate? So it's a story game. I'm not a huge fan of the distinction, but I think that we need to like get ahead of it, because it's also a dungeon crawler, and it's a body horror game, and it's a game about obsession. The overall pitch for it is that so Spire was a previous game. This is a big tall city, and it's so tall that reality has gone off underneath because it shouldn't be standing. And that place where reality has gone off is called the Heart. And initially it was a way for us to get any kind of weirdness we wanted into our game of Spire, because it could come out of the heart and we can have whatever. It's fine. It's just a big hole that the horrible things come out of. And we were looking how we could explore more in the world of Spire and more around the universe. And we were like, well, what if we just did people exploring the heart? So it's our examination of dungeon crawls. We really like the idea of dungeon crawls, and I think everyone pretty much does. But in practice, they tend to be, quite a lot of admin. There's quite a lot of map making.
There's maths
there's
in
a lot
there
of
as
maths.
well. Yeah.
And it's not hugely fun, that bit. And so what we wanted to do was take, like, the fun bit of dungeon crawls is when, like, we've only got enough food for one day and it's 3 days travel back. How are we going to make this work? We have to eat someone? Are we going to have to go hunting? Are we going to be, like, absolutely knackered for this fight? And so you have, like, what the system, the resistance system is primarily built around all the things that could go wrong. And we have a big bespoke list of things that can go wrong. And it's that we skip to the end. So there's all these horrible things that can go wrong in the heart, and they can all happen to your character. And we've tried to make misfortune and injury and madness and debt and all these things as interesting as leveling up. So, like, there's this desire to see your character thrown into adversity because it's exciting, and we've built a system which rewards that play. The other big thing I'd like to mention in the last three minutes of the podcast, which we've reserved for promotion, is we have something called callings. We have callings, and so one of the things which kind of bothered me about pretty much every other role-playing, pretty much every other dungeon crawling game aside from, like, your torchbearers, and is that it doesn't make any sense to go into a dungeon. Don't go in there. Like, you are not, like, dungeon crawlers, adventurers are not sane and sensible people. They're not role models. And they seem to be fairly well adjusted, a lot of them, aside from maybe being criminally short-sighted, in terms of their outlook. Oh, fuck me, that insect's back. No, we're good. I think it's bored of me. So we want to try and come up with ways of having obsessions power people through the story. Yeah. And so we have these callings, and the things like, I have to find the secret of bringing the dead back to life so I can rescue my brother from hell, or I need to get closer to the heart because it's sung to me in my dreams, or I need to get penitence for the crimes I've committed. And these are, like, you get this big list of scenes where these things we call beats, which you pick out at the start of every session, and you tell the GM what they are. The GM builds the session with you live at the start of the game, and then you play through, and then when you hit these things, you level up. And we wanted that obsession, that very personal goal and that arc to be the driving force behind the game, because you have to be really weird to go into a dungeon, especially one like the Heart. Yeah. And that's what we got. We've got a bunch of cool classes and cool weirds. Like, we want to make it weird, and I think, like, as you've heard me talk through the podcast, if you're still listening, you'll get an appreciation of, like, how we want to take something and then extrapolate a little bit more and think, well, what if we think about this for, like, 7 seconds rather than 3 seconds? How can we twist and reimagine things? And, like, Spire got a lot of acclaim for the world which we built, and we're doing it again with Heart. So if you like worlds, you'll love Heart.
Are you tempted to, and one of the things I see role-playing systems go down now is producing kind of like the characters, producing kind of like figures and scenes and kind of supplemental things, almost like accessories that people can buy to use in their role-playing sessions. Is that something you would ever consider going down, or is it a case of, look, do what you want, but I'm just writing here kind of thing?
I really dislike the sort of role-playing dandruff that has accumulated around our hobby. And you'll see, I'm going to say 40% of the things that are for sale at any convention are this sort of dandruff. So, like, you know, dice sheaths and roll-up map tubes and a t-shirt which has a D20 on, and it says, like, oh, roll for initiative, or something along those lines. These indicators of clan without actually being tools for playing the game, I don't like them. Like, I resent the fact I have to own dice, honestly. I get very bored by them. They're just tools. And it's not like an elitist thing. It's not like, oh, I'm playing the game at a higher level than you. I'm just not a fan of it. And I think that a lot of role-playing accessories do slot into that. They do have this sort of, well, you don't need this to play, and it isn't really adding anything to dice towers. Like, it's not hard to just drop dice out your hand. I do not understand what dice towers are for.
Well, they're
not even portable.
Grant, there's an entire industry based around dice towers. There's a network that's called the Dice Tower Network. I mean, you're effectively calling Tom Vassell.
Drop them.
But it's not the point. People like to drop them in certain... you cannot... watch it, what you're saying about Tom Vassell there.
Is that the same guy with the opium addiction? I've forgotten the name of the first one.
Yeah, I don't even know. Why are you taking this today? You don't want to do this. Anakin, you're taking me somewhere I can't follow. But, the accessories thing seems to become a part of everything. I know that there's people that do collect, they love their dice towers and they make them out of Lego and salmon and other various kind of different things. The thing with a salmon dice tower is the dice go up the way instead of down the way.
It's useless. It sprays them out across a dam.
Exactly. And then people have to catch them at the top. And then you're only allowed to use them once a year, though.
17,
what about other things? Have you thought about kind of like getting into like the board game type of stuff?
Yeah, I have. I wrote a full set of rules for a Spire war game. This time last. No, it was 2 years ago. I sat down and wrote some. I spent I was like, no, I want to get this done. I want to see how it could work, and so I put aside like 2 weeks just to sit down and focus on it and get the things hashed out. And I've read a lot of Warhammer and that sort of stuff, so I was obviously going to be informed from that. I tried to brush up on other systems. I got a functional, if not great, system out of it. And then I went to UK Games Expo. And I saw every other every other war game that was there, and how they were significantly more advanced and had like plastic models rather than my plan, which was just cardboard cutouts. And it's like, I don't have the skills to do that. I don't have the skills to write board games. I'm sure I could turn something out, as part of a team. I'm sure I could bring some strength to it, but it's not worth me or our business effectively pivoting to write board games or card games or war games, the same way that I'm not like a horse veterinarian, it's a different skill set and a different production line, which isn't hugely worth getting into. I think if we had a really big market who are hungry for merch, then maybe. What does interest me is writing in character stuff. So having one of the things we're working on is an in-character guidebook. So we've got a train network in the setting called the Vermissian, and it's haunted as fuck. It's terrifying. No one goes in there. It's all non-Euclidean and terrible. And something which we've been working on is the pocket guide to the Vermissian, which is written by the engineers before the opening as a sort of come and while away an hour on the pulse line, and have that all annotated and dressed up. So it's this fully in-character document. But it's supporting a thing we're doing. That's something I'm interested in because that's world building and that's cool. And I'd love to have models of the stuff I write. I'd love to have a little diorama. I'd love to have a fully posable spire.
I thought you were going to say thumbs. I thought you were going to say thumbs for a second. I'd love to. I've been using. It's been mashing my paws against the keyboard and relying on spell check. I just want to be able to hold a cup.
I want to be able to hold a cup with one hand rather than having to hold it to two hands to my face like a monkey.
or a cat in some kind of cartoon with a cat saying,
like a goddamn child. I'm a man. A man without thumbs. Is that us then?
Not really. No, there's always tons we could talk about. For people, the price of entry, I guess, is the important thing. How much do people have to put on to your fantastic Kickstarter in order to be able to back your fantastic Kickstarter?
So we have the lowest tier is £10, and £10 is the hardship tier. It's up to you whether you qualify for it or not, and you get the PDF and all the stretch goals.
Okay.
And that's 10 of your English pounds. Then it goes all the way up to, I think the Heart's Blood edition is 250 quid, which is hand-bound in leather by Wyvern Bookshop. So the Wyvern Bookbinders, who make the books for Harry Potter, apparently, which is very exciting. But if you want something in between those, the standard book's 35 quid, which I think is about fair for a core system. You'd easily spend that on half a round of drinks in London, and you'll have much more fun spending on this.
There's a sales pitch. Don't get drunk, get dark beneath the city.
Yeah, get lost.
Rippiga.
Why not roll a dice downstairs in a big spooky house where the dungeon live?
Exactly. If people have listened along tonight, and if you've got to the end, you've unlocked an achievement. There's going to be a little thing that's going to flash up on your phone. There you go. I don't know what it says. I've not invented it yet. But if people...
I haven't invented the technology yet, but I presume it'll be live.
It'll be alive by the time people listen to this. If people want to if they've listened along tonight and they want to follow you, obviously not down the street, but on the internet webs, where can they find you on the internet webs, Grant?
They can go to Twitter. It's the best place to go. My handle is GSHowitt, GSHOWITT. And I post about all the games I play on there. I've also got a podcast. So if you like listening to me talk and you're like, I wonder what it's like without that other guy, then you can go to, Twitter. No, just search Hearty Dice Friends, which is my own stupid podcast I do with my best friend Chris. And we talk, we make up role-playing games and give role-playing advice, and we take a sideways glance at the industry, which I'm sure you'll enjoy.
I shall make sure that we put all those links in the show notes so that we've got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we do, go to the internet web, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us in all the different worn out faces, worn out places, bright and early for the daily races on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And you can find us on all the podcast catchers where I've got the word pod and the word cast in them, and ones like Spreaker that have neither in them. If you like us very, very much, you can go to Apple Podcasts. You can drop us a subscription, a rating, or a review. We are still currently number 2 in the Apple Podcast charts for Chile. Which I'm very proud of. Yes, that's because
Congrats.
I think, well, there you go. You can't have much better. You know you're living when you're number 2
you
in Chile.
You can have one better.
No, and number 1 isn't even Critical Role. So there you go. So I'm beating you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm quite pleased with that.
Take that, Matt Mercer.
Exactly, that's what I said. I'm going to say that until we're less.
Not so handsome now, are you?
Not so handsome, successful, and just run a $1 million Kickstarter, are you now? And as we say, if you are going to be giving us a rating or review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed, but don't give us 1 star because it makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is rather wonderful, rather fantastic, slightly mysterious. Mr. Grant Howitt, thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice.
There's only 2 more things to do. First thing is to remember we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Grant?
No, we're not.
Absolutely. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Grant. Say goodbye, Grant.
Goodbye, Grant.
And it's goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful. And if you're in the market to try something, you want to harker that's got a little bit of heart in it, and you want to be beneath the city, and you like a bit of role play, and then get yourself to the heart of the city beneath RPG, because it's still got about 20 odd days to go. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never linked. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.